Hey everyone, Serge LeBlanc here. In this video, I'd like to introduce the concept of union in SQL. So to figure out what union does, let's first start with an example. So let's say that we have data that's divided into two different tables that have identical column structures. So for example, if we look at the Postgres database here, there's a table called FY17P and FY18P. And what this could be would be a summary of sales by different store names for the first 4 weeks of the year, for example. So there's one for 18P and one for 17P. And let's say that what we want to do is to combine the data from those two tables into one table. This is where the union clause can be very useful. So let's first just take a look what the data in here looks like. Okay, so we have looks like 11 data points in this table, right? Where we have the year 17, I'm not sure what PD means, but different store names, and we have data for between weeks 1 and week 4. Now let's take a look at the other table. Okay, so again, 11 rows, different store names, but this time 18 instead of 17. So let's assume that this data is basically a summary of the sales for the first 4 weeks of a year, for example, 2017, 2018, just for example. And let's say what we want to do analysis and statistics on sales from the store, but we want to combine them all into one table. So this is where the union operator is really useful. So let's see how union works. The way that we can use union is by first selecting data from the first table and then simply adding the clause union and then pasting the data from the other table. Right? So what this is going to do is going to select data from the first table and then combine it, union, with data from the second table. So if I go ahead and control return, all right, so what did I get? I get 22 rows now. So and we see we have data for 17 and data for 18. So what it did here visually is it took the first table and then took data from the first table and then took data from the second table and then kind of like put it beneath the results of the first table. So one on top of the other. Okay. Now for this to work, the columns have to be identical in both tables, the data types and the columns. Right, because it's just going to go and put one on top of the other. So when we look at rows here, these things on top, the column names and data types, have to be the same for this to work. So this was an example of taking data from two tables, but we can also just select specific columns and we can do unions from data within a table. So let's say, for example, that I would like to look at data just in one table, but summarize the sales from week 1 and week 2, and I want to put it in a format where I want all the sales in one column. So what I could do is say, okay, I'm going to select FYPD store name, right? And then week 1 data, FYP. All right, so let's see what we get from this query. All right, so it gives us the weeks 1 data for this table, right? But let's say now I want to add weeks 2 data and I want to stack it with weeks 2 data as well. So I can do that with union, right? So if I do union, you select store name, and now I do week 2. We got the comma here. All right, so what this will do is it will take weeks 2 data and put it just beneath the results of week 1 data and combine it into one where all the sales are in one single column. And you might want to do that because you're doing some analysis and you want all your sales data to be in a single column. Whoops. Remove the 8 here, okay. There we go, and now see we have 22 22 rows. So it took data from week 1 and week 2, and actually it called it the name of the column. It just named it what we had here in our first query. So what we could do here is change this, because really this is week 1 and 2. Then when we run this, we can see that these numbers come from week 1 and week 2. Okay, so that's just to introduce the concept of union tables, and we'll see a few more examples in class.